Hello, this is Mark L. White with Health Hacks, and today we have Nick Bitz with us. And Nick, first of all, thank you for joining the podcast.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
And you're what you call a neurohacker. Also, you're an NP, a naturopathic physician.
Yeah, so I'm a naturopathic doctor by training. I am a product formulator. I've been working in the dietary supplement space forever, and have formulated for a lot of different companies. But enthusiastic about biohacking, self-experimentation, self-optimization as that relates to wellness and health in a very broad manner. Yeah.
Okay, and you see a lot like biohacking, you hear a lot of buzzwords, which is really like we're going to use cutting edge treatments to get ourselves to a state that we couldn't get ourselves using, I guess, traditional medicine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a relatively new term, but it's definitely grabbed hold online. I think there's communities. If you get on like Reddit forums, there's a huge biohacking community there where people are sharing these little tips. A lot of them are scientific, some of them aren't, but it's really all about self-experimentation and figuring out what works for you, and then communicating that, sharing that with others in the community so that they can learn these techniques and try them out. And the techniques can be anything. I mean, it can be related to dietary supplements, botanicals, breathing exercises, sleep routines. You can literally biohack any aspect of your life. And so that's what I like. It kind of takes this health approach and brings it to a larger community. So it's kind of citizen science. So not clinical science, which I appreciate. It allows, I think, a lot more freedom and a lot more exploration into these areas that would be limited in a clinical setting, I think.
Yeah, I think you see a lot of things now in the biohacking community and just in general in age management that hit the marketplace where if you went through like traditional medicine, it would take decades for people to hear about it. And I guess when it comes to something like aging, we'd all be dead by the time the latest aging, like, I don't know if I want to wait 50 years to learn how to live 50 years younger.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much interesting science, but it's all early days. And to your point, if you wait until the science is buttoned up, 100% validated, confirmed, it's going to be too late. And so it's important, I think, to dabble earlier in the process. And I think that's the idea of biohacking, especially as it relates to aging, because there's a lot of really interesting science right now that we know about and that science has proven that we can take advantage of and use in our day-to-day.
How did you get involved in this? Why passionate about age management? Why passionate about biohacking?
Well, again, my background's in naturopathic medicine. And the reason that I chose that as my career profession was because it was health oriented. It was focused less on disease processes, diagnoses, pharmaceutical therapies. And it was more focused on how do you create abundance and health and wellness in somebody, which is entirely different than that conventional approach. My background is specifically in Ayurvedic medicine, which is the traditional form of medicine that comes from India.
It's cool.
So I've lived and studied in India, and that's kind of the lens through which I see everything. So I apply my naturopathic thinking through that Ayurvedic lens, which is another layer. And the reason that I like Ayurveda is because it's not necessarily a medical system. It really is a philosophy of living. So how to be in harmony with these universal truths that we've known about for 5,000 years. How do you relate to the world? How do you relate to your surroundings, your food, yourself in a way that optimizes health overall? And so that's it. My fundamental push is to create health and abundance in myself, and then to help others optimize that in their self.
That's really interesting. When you were in India looking at Ayurvedic medicine, how did it differ from what you were taught, like in Western medicine? What was the biggest?
Yeah, it's a very unique framework and paradigm altogether. Very different. Some overlaps, but generally speaking, I think the biggest difference is that it's an energetic medicine, which sounds a little woo-woo, but in that it means that everything has an energetic quality. And they've confirmed and validated the energetic properties of virtually everything. So if you look at diet, for instance, they know that the diet is composed of these 5 elements, and certain foods have a predominance of maybe 1 or 2 of these elements. And so when you consume those elements, you're putting those 5 elements, or those 1 and 2 elements, into your body, and it's impacting the ratio of energies in your body. And so based upon your energetic constitutional body type property, you can manipulate that, and you can maintain that, you can modify that through diet, through supplements, because everything has an energy. And once you understand that, it becomes a principle of opposites. And so if you have too much, as an example, too much heat, you want to do the opposite of heat, which is something that's cooling. If you are too stimulated, you want to do the opposite of that, which is calming. If you're too oily, you want to do the opposite of that, which is drying. And so that's how Ayurveda approaches it. They look at the individual, what is your body type, and what are the energetic properties there? And then how can we maintain balance through these external measures, which are usually food and botanical and sources.
That's really cool. And when it comes to things like aging, what is their approach for helping people stay young?
So they're all about creating that balance. And there are certain ways that you can eliminate excess energies in the body. And so they're called doshas. You may have heard of them: vata, pitta, kapha. So these energies, they accumulate inside the body, and any kind of imbalance in the body is caused by maybe too much vata or maybe too much kapha. And there's a way to get rid of that through the body. And there's a process that they use called panchakarma. That means 5 actions. And so there's 5 different ways that you can get rid of these excess energies. And so it's a very deep, complex system, but it really is just about creating balance overall. And if you can do that, the idea is that you can maintain longevity. There are certain foods, there are certain botanicals that are known to be rasayanas, which is a term for rejuvenative. So they can really help to push along the longevity pathways within the body as well.
What is the, you're seeing a lot of people talking about plant-based medicine and botanicals. What excites you the most if you're looking at this over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, so what excites me the most is really outside of Ayurveda. I mean, I'm looking at kind of what's next in science, what's next in aging. I'm particularly excited about the field of senescence. And it's incredible. It's incredibly fascinating. There's been tons of research in this area in the last 5 years. And I think that's really the future of aging. And so senescence, in short, is one of the hallmarks of aging. And we've known about this term since the 60s, but we've really linked it up with the aging process since about 2013. There was a landmark paper that was published that described these 9 hallmarks of aging, one of which is cellular senescence. And senescence is just growing old. That's what the word means. And cellular senescence is the process by which cells grow old and stop dividing. And so when you have these old cells that are in the body that have stopped dividing, they're kind of in this limbo state. Well, they're not healthy and they're not productive, but your body's not eliminating them. And so they're stuck in your tissues throughout the body. And that is a driver of the aging process. And so we're starting to understand what is underlining that process, and then what can we do about that process. There's a couple solutions as well.
Well, first of all, like, when do people, at what age do people start noticing the effects of senescence? And also, is there a way to measure in our bodies our cellular health?
Great questions. We do accumulate senescent cells over time as we age. So younger individuals tend to have less senescent cells than individuals that are 70 plus. And so with that said, there's no specific way that we can really measure senescent cell burden or tissue load currently. There's been a lot of hypotheses, but none of them have really been validated to date. I would say the best method to date is a muscle biopsy, because muscle, just like every other tissue, over time does accumulate these kind of dead, lingering cells called senescent cells. And so you can measure them specifically in muscle tissue before and after certain treatments to see the impact of senescent cell load. So that's a very direct measure, but we are looking for different blood markers, as an example, or different urinary markers. And I'm hoping that in the next 6 months, maybe the next 12 months, we'll have a better biomarker that we can test.
Now, you mentioned that there are a couple of things that really excited you about treating senescence. What's the biggest way to treat that you see?
Yeah, so senescent cells are interesting because what they do to persist and linger inside the body is they upregulate these survival proteins. They're called SCAP networks. And these SCAP networks basically prevent the cell from going through apoptosis. And apoptosis is cellular death. Apoptosis comes from the Latin word that means falling off. So much like a leaf falling off of a tree, or a petal falling off of a flower, or a fruit falling off of a bush, it's important that these cells go through apoptosis and then they fall off from the body. Senescent cells, they don't go through apoptosis. And so that's abnormal, right? So they do stick around. Some of them stick around for a very short amount of time, which is healthy. It's normal. We constantly produce them with exercise, with trauma, again, with old age, but we constantly clear them. But there are some lingering ones, and those are the ones that are linked with aging. Those are the ones that are long-lived, and those are the ones that upregulate those proteins to kind of shield themselves from surveillance, so that the body doesn't prune them away. And so that SCAP network, those kind of proteins that they upregulate, that's really the Achilles heel of these senescent cells. And so scientists now are going in and trying to disrupt these networks of proteins in cells. And so far they're being quite successful to do that. And if you can do that, you basically remove these SCAP networks within these cells that they're using as shields. And then they're reverting back to its normal healthy life cycle, and it's going through apoptosis and they're falling off. And so these compounds are known as senolytic compounds. And so that's the area that really excites me, because senolytics as a whole category is incredibly, hopefully it's turning out to be incredibly useful and promising for really targeting this direct aging process. And so seno means aging and lytic means to destroy. And so these senolytic compounds can be any number of substances. They can be pharmaceutical, they can be nutritional, they can be botanical. And right now we've identified a whole host of them that can go in and help induce apoptosis in these senescent cells, so that then the body can then eliminate them.
Which one would you say for pharmaceuticals versus nutraceuticals or botanicals? Which ones do you see that have the most promise? The ones that we're starting to uncover that more and more. In 2015, that was the first study that showcased that senolytics in fact work. That study, it was a mouse study, but they used quercetin,
which is commonly used as an antihistamine, anti-inflammatory compound in the supplement space, and dasatinib, which is a cancer drug. And they combined those two compounds into a senolytic cocktail that they gave to mice. And they showed for the first time that you can reduce senescent cell load in mice and bring about super functional benefits. So in that study, they showed that it improved cardiac function, it improved exercise endurance, it undercut osteoporosis, it increased health span, it increased lifespan. So that was the first time that we saw that. And that, I think, really started a fire here in this whole field, and everybody started looking at other compounds that work similarly. And so shortly after that, they started looking at a number of different compounds. In one study, they looked at 10 different polyphenols, resveratrol, fisetin, catechin, EGCG, some very common nutritional antioxidants. And they identified fisetin as potentially the most potent senolytic compound. And so since that time, there's been a lot of research on fisetin specifically as a senolytic agent.
That's it's essentially really mind-blowing when you think about how far it's come just in the last 10, 20 years. You mentioned like pharmaceuticals. Are you worried about big pharma trying to hijack some of this research and taking it over?
I'm certainly not worried about it. I would worry that they might take it over and then own it and then not make it useful to the common folk. It would take it away.
Doesn't fit their business model.
Yeah, I mean, they can make a lot of money in this space, and they are investing millions, if not billions of dollars into this space presently. And so pharmaceutical companies, biotech startups, there are hundreds of organizations that are looking at this right now, trying to solve it in meaningful ways so that they can hopefully help improve health and wellness. But of course, I think they're looking at the monetary component as well. I think the risk is then that would remove the conversation from us. We wouldn't be able to have dietary supplements that are senolytic in nature if they become pharmaceutical.
Now, you got together, it became a part of the Neurohacker Collective. Looks like it's been there for about 7, 8 years. A great group of people. I recognize a lot of names. You guys are out there coming up with a commercialization strategy to get this in the hands of people at a good value and validating all the research and making sure we have good products.
Yeah, I mean, so the Neurohacker Collective is a very eclectic team. We're a group of scientists, doctors, technologists, creatives, very diverse group. Everybody came from different professions, and we've all come together to biohack, which is amazing. So we're really well known in the space of nootropics, which are cognitive enhancing products. And aging, but we have a variety of different products as well. And so we are a science-first organization. One of the things that separates us from a lot of the other dietary supplement companies is that we run pilot studies on all of our finished products before they go to market. So we make sure that not only are we putting together the best formulations, but the formulation that we've put together as a finished product is tolerable and it's efficacious. And so we're making sure that when we're saying that it does something, that we've already tested that finished product to ensure that it's giving that result. And so to my knowledge, there's very few dietary supplement companies that are doing that. That model, of course, is, I would say, more pharmaceutical in nature. But I do like that we're doing that. We're adding science at every stage, and we're spending, thousands of hours in the R&D space before a product gets launched.
I think that's so important because I think when it comes to nootropics and supplements, the companies have to regulate themselves. Fortunately, we don't have FDA in there, but unfortunately, you have bad actors who rush things to market without the proper studies. And I think the fact that you guys have put together such a diverse group of well-known people, I really commend that. It's really cool. Like I'm looking at your longevity brand, Qualia Life. Like, what would you, if somebody was looking at this and said, I need to take 2, 3, 4 supplements a day because I want to have the best quality of life, what would you recommend?
Yeah, so the nice thing about Qualia Senolytic, which is the neurohacker solution to senescence, and it's a very unique product in the marketplace. There's really nothing like that. That's a 2-day regimen. So you do it 2 days per month. And so it's not an everyday thing. So it's not a big burden to do day in and day out. And so I love that product in and of itself. As an add-on, as an everyday product, I love Qualia Life. It's really going in and targeting cellular health as a whole, pushing NAD pathways, ATP pathways, focused on telomeres, DNA. I mean, it really is a super well-rounded, robust formulation that is comprehensive in its approach. And it's very felt, not in the way that like caffeine is felt, but in a cellular health way. And people that take it report amazing benefits. A lot of those benefits tend to be accrued over time. And so in my experience, the deeper benefits appear later. So weeks after using the product, not necessarily day one. So Qualia Life is a fantastic product to get on. And then our flagship is Qualia Mind. Another incredibly robust whole system science formulation. It's, a 7 per day capsule per day product. So very robust in its offering, and it pushes several different unique and overlapping pathways that help to boost cognition on a daily basis. And I like that product because it's felt. And for me, I'm sitting in front of a computer day in and day out. I'm writing, I'm doing research. I'm communicating, and so I lean heavily on Qualia Mind just to make sure that I'm at my best mentally, day in and day out.
Yeah, that's really cool. And everybody talks about like focus and mindfulness, and I know, and it fits in a lot with Eastern medicine too, just being mindful and presence. How do you measure like in Qualia Mind? What's the main ingredient that gives you that?
Well, so we pride ourselves on not being like an ingredient company, right? So we're not like, oh, it's an ashwagandha product, as an example. There's a lot of little mini stacks, nootropic stacks that are in that formulation, and they all serve different purposes. And collectively, there's a synergy there that's really nice. In making that formula, we put a lot of thought in looking at the physiology of the brain and what's needed to support the brain optimally. And then we tested a lot of different formulas to see which one had the greatest effect. And so for us, synergy is a real tangible end result of our formulations. I know a lot of people talk about synergy of certain ingredients, but in terms of how we formulate and how we think, I think that's our pride point when it comes to Qualia Mind. With that said, if I had to look at one of the core stacks in that product, I would look at L-theanine and caffeine. So it has a very small amount of caffeine in there, but the amount plays really well with L-theanine. And so typically, if you look at green tea is a source of L-theanine, which is that calming amino acid. It's a source of caffeine as well. Typically, that's in a 2-to-1 ratio of caffeine to theanine in green tea. But when you flip that ratio upside down and you do 2-to-1 of theanine to caffeine, the results are amazing for focus, for motivation, for mental clarity. And that has tons of research. Those two ingredients in that ratio, the research is really, really amazing. And the reason that I like that simple combination so much is because it's felt. You can take it and within 15, 30 minutes, you feel those two ingredients working very effectively, very quickly.
It's actually very smart, because I think a lot of times when you talk to some naturopaths, they'll tell you, go out and get L-theanine, go out and get this, and you end up buying 6, 7, 8 different supplements trying to get the right mixture, but I think it's smart what you guys have done. You've formulated this where you have everything right down to the science.
Yeah, and one of our principles is that we're not pushing any one pathway too heavily. And so we tend to work with ingredients at their minimum effective dose, so that people can do them day in and day out, and they don't adapt to them. They don't create tolerance to them. They don't become what I call a physiologic invalid, where you begin to rely on these substances to function on a daily basis. And so the goal is to normalize physiology through these low dose ingredients that are pushing pathways in a very specific way.
And I think the focus too here on Neurohackers, really you're focusing more on mind and brain function first and foremost.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that is our flagship. And those are, we have a whole suite of products that are geared for cognition specifically. And so Neurohacker, hence the name Neuro, that's really what we're well known for. And so when people think about the brand, they really think about our cognition products, especially Qualia Mind.
Awesome. So if anybody's listening to this and they want more information, they can see all the studies at neurohacker.com. And the main products you would recommend for just all well-rounded is mind and life.
Yeah, in conjunction with Qualia Senolytic, which is our newest product that, again, is that 2-day, I'm going to call it a cellular detox, in that it just helps the body to eliminate those senescent cells in a healthy way.
Oh, that's really cool. I know nobody's talking enough about senescence, so I think it's great that you shared that with us. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. It is super exciting. Hopefully I captured a little bit of that excitement and was able to communicate it. But we have a lot of information on our website, neurohacker.com, talking about the science, talking about all of the ingredients, talking about how to use products. So I would highly recommend going there if somebody's interested in learning more about products.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.